Hello, my name is Marko Keba, and today I am joined by Ari Jouppila, head of a big Ericsson unit called Product Development Unit Mobile Core. So, to start the conversation up, maybe a bit of the professional background for the people that do not know you.
Okay, hello. Yes, my name is Ari Jouppila. I'm working heading one of the product development units within Ericsson, which is a telecommunications company. And I've been working for Ericsson for 20 years, and now during the last 4 or 5 years I've been involved in transformation of Ericsson's R&D and especially my product development unit into lean and agile ways of working.
Okay, how big is the unit?
Altogether we have roughly 1,600 people working for us, and it's both our own employees and then key selected suppliers that we are very actively working together with.
Okay, so how does the transition of such a big office start?
Well, that's a good question, and these people that we have within our organizations, they are also very geographically distributed. So we have more than 10 sites involved in this type of product development we do. And the start of this type of change, it usually happens either two ways. Either it is so that there are some development teams basically involved in exploring new ways of working and finding practices like Scrum and extreme programming and so on, and trialing them in small scale within the operations. And then it's also often that the top management or the managers and leaders are actually kind of trying to find new ways of improving the operations. And I think for us actually it was a combination of these. It was both that we saw that there were some teams in some locations trialing out new ways of working and exploring what Agile could be and offer. And then we started also in the as leaders discussing about how we could actually utilize the lean and agile principles and the whole philosophy to actually become better and serve our customers in a better way.
So it was not a pure bottom-up, not a pure top-down approach, but some kind of a mix of the two?
I would say it was kind of a mix of both directions. So I think it's very easy to believe that it's either bottom-up or top-down, but at least in our case, and I think this is very typical in our company, that it is actually a mix of these two things, because we have, as usually we have in R&D, clever people who are very curious about software development, and they look around what is happening in the industry in software development, and they are very eager to try out new things. And then 5 years ago, we also, as leaders, started to kind of look into how can we actually improve the whole operations. And naturally, the challenge for an organization like us is that it's a very big operation, and we have a lot of interdependencies between the different sites, and the products are very complex and very business critical. So just letting the organization and the individual teams to actually choose their way of working, that is not fully going to work in our environment. We need to have also the coordination of certain things, and that really requires that we have both the initiatives and the passion coming from the bottom up for this type of changes, but then we need to also guide and coach and coordinate certain things from the management.
Okay, so it's been a 5-year journey so far, and what would you say based on the experience? What needs to be avoided maybe?
Yes, that's a good question. There's a lot of advice about how to do these type of changes, but naturally there is a number of pitfalls that you could say, a number of challenges that we also ourselves actually ran into. I think one of the very important things is to really strike a right balance between this bottom-up and top-down, that to really be able to actually create an environment and transition where you are actually supporting the bottom-up initiatives and giving the empowerment for the teams and the developers to actually find a better way of developing software, and then find the right balance about, well, what is actually the support and the guidance coming from the top-down then. I think that is one of the key things that usually, in my experience, we have seen that some organizations are too much bottom-up driven, and then some organizations are totally top-down driven, and those both extremes have quite difficult kind of challenges to manage. So striking the right balance is, I think, a very important thing. Then maybe the second thing is that, especially for bigger corporations and big organizations, it's always very tempting to try to do a very big bang type of a change, trying to change from Friday to Monday, the whole way of working, sending people to courses and doing training. But at least one of our success factors was really to actually start in very small scale. We have actually more than 100 development teams working, but we actually started by creating one team at a time. And especially in the beginning, we were really trialing out in very, very small scale to really learn about what does this really mean, what is really the new way of working when we are applying Lean and Agile philosophy. And it took for us quite a long time actually to scale from these first teams up to the more than 100 team that we have actually today. So kind of taking it stepwise, not trying to rush too fast into a kind of changeover of the whole organization too fast. And I think this is very important because these things are so fundamentally different for organizations that have been working in a kind of a waterfall way that it takes time also for all the personnel involved in the whole organizations to kind of learn and understand what does this new way of working really mean. And it is good that we are kind of giving some time for the organization to adjust in stepwise approach.
So scaling from one teams up to 100, when would you say that you know that you have crossed the chasm, that the organization is not rolling back to the old ways of working or thinking?
Yeah, looking at this type of transformations, there's very tempting to try to define some KPIs or some type of kind of count the number of teams or count other things as well. Do we have the roles and new responsibilities like Scrum Masters and the product owners defined? But I think that type of KPIs are not really giving a good view about what is actually happening in the organization. So there needs to be another way of assessing actually how does the organization really, what is the kind of the temperature in this type of change and when we are actually kind of crossing the chasm. For me, it was personally a situation where I was actually being basically approached by one of our developers who was actually, after some time trialing out this new way of working and being part of this change, he actually came to me and said that, well, Ari, if you would be now actually standing in front of the whole organization and saying that no, this is actually now wrong, we need to go back, they wouldn't anymore listen to you.
They wouldn't follow?
They wouldn't follow me, and that was the moment when I knew, yes, now we are basically over the biggest hurdle, now the change is taken by the organization, now the people are kind of driving it forward, and even if I would be trying to go back into where we were several years ago, they wouldn't anymore believe me. And that was a kind of a very strong signal for me that, well, now I think we are past of the early hurdles and we are now basically in a good way going forward.
Okay, that's quite clear. So while scaling up, how do the teams that are actually doing the new ways of working, how do they interface the parts of the organization that are not yet agile?
Yeah.
How do they do that?
That is a good question and very, very challenging one, because we also have naturally in complex and large systems like we are interacting with a number of other units within our company, offering kind of software components and platforms, and then we have also interfaces to other companies. And very often, especially when you are kind of pioneering like what we did within our company, we have been interfacing other organizations where the Lean and Agile transformation has not actually come as far as our part of the organization. And that really requires that we need to actually fit together the way of working that we have, and then try to start gradually influencing these other parts of the organizations to start adapting more of the principles and the practices that we are actually having. And for example, what we have been trying to do with some of the other organizations is to talk about, for example, the benefits of fast feedback loops, establish continuous integration type of practices across the organizational borders. And that has been very, very helpful, basically, to kind of start the dialogue, not talking about the big change about Lean and Agile, but talk about the small things, about why it is so important that we are actually able to give fast feedback loop and able to actually kind of introduce some of the practices that we have done. Then we have, I think, a great challenge also when it comes to some of the kind of outside R&D functions, like the HR, the human resources, and the financial control, the supplier management, and other areas. And there, it's just a long journey of education in a perseverant way, basically educate, tell about these functions, about why are we doing things, what are the values and principles that we are now following, why we believe that this is the right way for us to go, and what would be the support that we would actually need from these functions so that we are able to actually do the best work that we can do. And it is sometimes difficult for people in the HR or the financial control, because they are not living in that environment that we have created on a daily basis. They are getting a kind of a very short glimpses of what we do when they are meeting with us, and it is a challenging work to basically go through that and talk with them on a regular basis and try to educate them.
So were you able to protect these teams from these organizational antibodies protecting the current system?
I think we succeeded pretty well. At least in the beginning, we were able to actually shield the organization pretty well and to kind of create the possibilities for this change within our organization. But naturally, the more mature we come, we see that we have more and more impediments, more and more challenges when it comes to these other functions. And now I think that we need to also start taking those discussions and actually remove some of the shielding and ensure that we have a close dialogue and interaction with these other organizations, because otherwise they will just continue in their current direction and they don't really see the need to actually change and follow what we are doing.
So what would you say, how much learning, I mean particular learning, exact learning of the new concept needs to take place, and who is the one supposed to take the learning, and what is the best way for people to learn?
Absolutely, I think that is one of the big things, that this type of change really requires that the organization is giving the okay for the organization to really learn. It needs to be very outspoken. It needs to come from the leaders that this is a change that will not just happen over 2 days course or similar very how would I say specific training sessions. This is going to be a journey in learning. The learning continuously throughout the whole transformation, and also after the transformation, when we are basically continuously improving. Learning will be a very important part of this whole new way of working, and it goes across the whole organization. It's not only about the developers or the people working in Scrum teams or cross-functional teams. It's not only about the roles like the Scrum Masters or the first line managers, but it's basically everybody within the organization that needs to really take learning much more seriously and invest a lot of effort and time. And this is also something that we naturally need to kind of align and also handshake with our stakeholders, who are actually basically paying our salaries that, well, now we are spending a considerable part of our time actually to learn new things. And I think that has become, in my organization and in many organizations, the way of doing things. It's not anything more kind of specific that you are going to courses and so on, but learning becomes a kind of a habit on a daily basis, that you are always constantly thinking about the learning aspects. How can I learn more? Where can I learn more? And through the practices like the retrospectives, it becomes kind of institutionalized in the whole organization actually.
So it's both for the developers and for the leaders or the managers that are supposed to be learning through this time.
Absolutely. And I think that, put it bluntly, maybe it is so that actually it's the leaders that need to learn and maybe also unlearn a lot of things that they need to unlearn. So they need to basically unlearn many of the things, how they were doing things in the past, and learn a lot of new skills and practices in order to be able to support this type of way of working and transformation in a good way.
Yeah, unlearning, that's nice. And what would you say, how much discipline does Agile prescribe? I mean, compared to the old ways of working, is this a more disciplined way of doing things, or is it a more chaotic way of doing things?
Yeah, I think that here probably the industry is a little bit split. You can hear a number of different views about is this the more disciplined way and so on. My feeling is that it is very disciplined way of working, and naturally I think that in our organization we have very skilled and very ambitious developers who are very disciplined in how they do their work, and we are now actually kind of creating an environment where we are letting them to actually to choose a lot of the cadence of the work being done, and we are supporting with a new type of framework. But yes, I think that looking at the discipline of for example, if you are using practices like Scrum, Scrum is a very prescriptive kind of a method which kind of defines number of roles, artifacts, rituals, and so on, and it is very disciplined, and maybe for some organization this is quite a big change actually, that instead of having maybe developers doing their own stuff for many months and then integrating after several weeks or several months their work to the rest of the product. Here, when it comes to the practices like the continuous integration and the Scrum way of basically creating the cadence in the organization, it is very disciplined, but I don't feel that has been at all a challenge for us. I think that has been working quite easily, and people have been actually adjust. Then we have naturally a discussion within our organization aspects like innovation. How do we create room for the innovation and things like that? And then you can see that there are a number of different ways of doing things like basically saying, for some teams that after a number of sprints they are able to have maybe a sprint to work with some kind of topics outside their current product assignment, working on innovation things or working with some improvements which are not coming from the product backlog, so to say. So you are able to actually mix and also a little bit maybe create some flexibility into this very disciplined and sprint-based way of working on the team level.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Ari, and good luck.
Thank you.